Hello everybody, my name is Stevie Marchant and this is my woodshop. Today we're going to be talking about the lathe, which is this thing over here, how it works and what you can do with it. If you're new to this channel, I post new woodworking videos every Monday and it's teaching people about every kind of tool that I have in my workshop, from a hand saw to a bandsaw, from a drill to a table saw, anything like that. Give you a general price on them and try and diffuse some of the uncertainty around woodworking, and this myth that only certain people can do it and it's super expensive, everything like that. Right, let's take a look at the lathe. Okay, this is my lathe. It's a belt-driven model by Einhell. Very basically, all a lathe does is spins a piece of wood round in circles from this point to this point, like this. And as it's spinning, you put a chisel to the wood, and the chisel cuts the wood as it's spinning around, so you can shape it into a round shape. And that's all there is to it. So let me just go through a few different components of the lathe, show you inside how it works. So first of all, looking outside of the lathe, you've got the lathe bed here, which are these two square rods that come out. You've got the tailstock here, which holds the rear end of the wood in place. And this is adjustable forwards and backwards, and once it's clamped down you tighten that up and it squeezes the wood together so it doesn't fall off. This is called the tool rest. This is adjustable up and down, backwards and forwards, depends on how big your workpiece is. And here's the drive spur. And what the drive spur does is bites into the end of your wood piece and grips it, so when it spins, the wood doesn't just spin around the drive spur, it grips it and spins with it rather than around it. This one just has a bearing on because it doesn't really matter if that spins with it or around it, because that's not doing any of the driving, that's just holding it in place. As well as a drive spur, we have what's called a faceplate. And that'll screw, once this comes off, that'll screw onto the threaded insert there. Get this out of the way. And what that does is allows you to put a larger flat piece of wood on there, so you can turn, say, a bowl or a plate, or just some wide thing on there. Where this is more used for long, thin pieces of wood like that. So if we take a look around the back of the lathe, we'll open this rear door and you'll see some pulleys and a drive belt. And what that does is, like the drill press, it just adjusts the speed of the drive spur. So the motor is connected to this bottom wheel here, and the drive spur is connected to this top wheel here. And it shows you a little diagram on the side. That's better. Yeah, very dusty as per usual. So adjusting the position of the drive belt here changes the speed of the drive spindle. And again, that's all there is to it. So let's do that one. So close that up. This one does have a safety switch here, so the pulleys won't turn. You can't switch the machine on unless the door is closed and tightened down properly. So this isn't the original knob that came with it, I just lost mine, so I had to improvise. So that's pretty much it for the first part of this video. Just wanted to give you a general overview of the lathe, how it works and the components of it. The second part of this video, which I'll move on to in just a second, will be me turning something on the lathe and showing you how to set the wood up properly so it fits into the machine okay. And I'll show through a couple of the chisels that I've got as well, and the different types of chisels and what they can do to the wood. So the woodworking lathe is quite a specialist tool. Most woodworkers, once they've amassed a collection of tools and they fancy branching out, will get a lathe. Otherwise, you'll either do wood turning or do other woodworking. Because the lathe is so expensive, most people will start with woodworking first and then sort of branch out to wood turning. But if you've been introduced to wood turning first and you've got yourself a lathe, then most people, it's like a rabbit's hole of a lathe. You can do so many things on it, and it's so addictive, and it's very therapeutic and calming to turn something on a lathe. So by no means is it an essential woodworking tool, but once you do get one, if you do want one, the possibilities are limitless, and you can make very lovely pieces with it. As you saw, this one is an Einhell lathe, which is a company that I think they make work zone tools, so surprise, surprise. A very good tool. It is probably the cheapest one I could find with a drive spur, a built-in motor, rather than one of those ones you could put a drill into. Steer clear of those. Saying that, it was £130. That was discounted from the website because it was a refurbished model. So yeah, lathes are not cheap. They can be upwards of thousands of pounds, tens of thousands of pounds for big industrial ones. So this one, as you saw, you can adjust the speed via a couple of pulleys and adjusting the drive belt on there. You can also buy electronically speed controlled lathes, which hence the price tag on them. You just press a button and it'll adjust the speed up and down for you. I'd love one of those, but like I said, they're in the thousands of pounds. You can get them for a couple of £100, but still, that's a bit more money that I'd like to spend on something that I already own. If you've got the money, hey, splash out on one. But if not, have a look on eBay, have a look on Amazon, try and get a deal, Gumtree, anything like that, that people will be selling them all the time. I won't do a lot of talking on this next one because it will be mostly wood turning, but I will just show you quickly how to set the lathe up, how to prepare the wood to get onto the spindle, and I'm going to make a little magic wand. Nice and simple project. Right, let's get to it. Wait a minute. Might be something I've got to do first, hold on. Tea time. Lots of tea. Tea time is. Coffee time. Okay, first, to turn a piece of wood on the lathe, it has to be as close to a square as you can get. So there's a number of ways you can do this. You can either run it along a table saw, which would be the easiest way, bandsaw, which I'm going to do, or if you really fancy it, or if you really do have limited tools, then just draw a straight line and use a handsaw. It doesn't have to be perfect because your lathe will make it round anyway, so don't worry about it being wavy or not straight or anything like that. It's just a blank to get us going. So right, I'm going to make sure this is square by first putting it in this way, putting the wood up against the blade. So now I know that the blade is set up to the width of this piece of wood, and if I turn it this way, it will cut it into a square. And there you have it, a rough square shape on the bandsaw. Okay, so now what we're going to do is find the centre point of each end, and you can do that by simply grabbing a straight edge and joining the corners together. Now, the more accurate you can get this, the less wood you're going to waste. There we are. So corner to corner, there's the centre point. Repeat that over on the other side. Okay, so now we have the centre point on each end. And like I said, it doesn't have to be spot on perfect, but the more accurate you can get it, the less waste you'll get around the edges there. Alrighty, so now that we have the wood prepared, we're going to put it up into the lathe drive spur. And first of all, to do that, you need 2 spanners, which will usually come supplied with the lathe, but I've put mine in the garage, so I've got to use whatever I can find. And you loosen off the drive spur. Like that. And what you do is just match the drive centre to the centre of the X you've got marked there, and get a hammer and knock it in. Now, as you can see, it's indented a shape into there so it can grip it and spin it rather than just spinning loosely on the tip. Okay, so once you drive the spurs back on, line up the hole like so, and then we can position our tailstock into the centre of that hole. And once your tailstock is positioned, you clamp that down. Make sure it doesn't move. We squeeze the wood in and let the tailstock embed itself in. And obviously we don't want this to rattle backwards, so what we're going to do is tighten this nut onto the tailstock so it doesn't move. Like so. Okie dokie, so now that the workpiece is chucked up and it's spinning okay, we've got to adjust the tool rest to make sure that A, it's close enough that the chisel isn't going to flip up with the wood, and B, make sure it's away from the wood at its furthest out point, because the last thing you want is the wood just hitting the tool rest. I like that. Nice and tight. So, probably the most commonly used chisel is going to be the roughing gouge. Just a normal standard chisel, but with a curve in it. And what that does is it lets you turn a square into a circle. So that's the roughing gouge. And then the other one I'm going to use is going to be called a skew chisel. And this is a chisel, but with a diagonal top. And you'll see that the skew chisel is sharpened on both ends. Like that. And just before we get started, the way the lathe works is the same as, say, a plane, hand plane, and the chisel cuts the wood, but instead of the chisel moving, the wood will move towards the chisel. So your chisel is placed on the rest here, and as the wood is spinning around, the blade is cutting the wood and sort of peeling bits off as it goes around. And that's how it makes a square piece of wood round, because it's turning on one axis. Right, enough gab. Let's make a magic wand. So as you can see, the lathe is very messy. That's just from less than a minute of turning. But you can also see that the wood is starting to round off. The edges have all gone. It's very rough, like I said. This is a roughing gouge, and I haven't sharpened it, which is probably a bad idea. You've got to make sure your wood turning chisel is sharp, otherwise it could gouge into the wood and not cut it, but get stuck in there, you know what I mean. Also, I'm using pine because it's very cheap, it's easy to cut, it's very, very easy to turn. Okay, let's get back to it. Okay, as you can see, it's starting to get quite round now. It's still very rough, like I said, because it's pine. Although it's very easy to cut and very easy to work with, it doesn't leave as nice a finish as other woods do. There's still a flat bit here, so I'm just going to turn it a little bit more, get rid of this flat edge, and then we'll move on to using the other chisel and we'll speed it up a bit. Because I'm roughing the general shape out and because there was a lot of edges, I've got my lathe set to the second to lowest setting on there. Once you get to more of a round shape, you can up the speed and it will make cutting easier and quicker. Okay, and now it's all rounded, I'm going to adjust the belt speed so then I can move on to getting the details in there. Okie dokie, so now I've got the round shape, I've changed the speed setting up a notch. I'm going to use the skew chisel to flatten it out a bit more and get some detail on there. So what I want is a nice fat handle, and then it's going to taper off and thin out towards the end. Right, let's get to it. ready. So now the basic shape of a wand is done, we just need to sand it. And you can do that with any scrap piece of sandpaper you can find. I'm going to use a broken belt sander. We'll take the tool rest out of the way, if you can find it underneath all the sawdust. Drop that down like that. Woo! There we go, that's how that comes off. And now you have access to the workpiece. As you can see, pine really doesn't turn smoothly, which is why we're going to use a lot of sandpaper. And I did notice it started to wobble quite a lot there. As you're turning, when you get thinner, the wood does tend to get very delicate, so you need to be very careful with the pressure you put on it. Let's see if we can try and sand this thing without killing it. Okay, already it's gotten a little bit smoother, not amazingly so, but if we keep going with it, move up the sandpaper grits, it will look a lot nicer, and we can put a bit of finish on it as well. Alright, just move it to 150. So by all means, as the wood piece is spinning, as long as it's smooth like this, you can touch it with your fingers. Don't jab at it with your fingers, because then that will cause your fingernail to snag in it. But yeah, this is 150 grit sandpaper. We'll go up to a slightly higher grit now to finish it off. By no means is this piece perfect, because like I said, it's pine and doesn't turn amazingly well. So it does require a hell of a lot of sanding to get it looking nice. But yeah, just move up a grit. Okay, and that is pretty much done. We just need to saw off the ends here to separate the one from the waste pieces, and spray it with some lacquer, I guess. So, as you can see, the lathe does make quite a lot of mess. All of this under here. It's a very messy tool. All these wood chippings, most of the time they just go on the floor. Alrighty, and that is it for the lathe video today. I hope you enjoyed this video. I'm going to spray this with some lacquer and I'll put a picture of the finished sprayed product on my Facebook page. So please subscribe to this channel if you haven't already. I post new woodworking videos every Monday. Give this video a like if you liked it. If not, leave a comment, tell me why, so I can improve. And thank you again for watching. I really appreciate every single one of you. Thank you very much. Have a good week and I'll see you next time. Bzzz. I'll see if I can put an effect on this or something. Yeah. If I figured out how to put a special effect on that, that'd look pretty cool.